Finance is an industry known for intense jobs with high pay, but some jobs are more harsh and lucrative than the rest. One such job is a portfolio manager at a hedge fund who can earn tens of millions of dollars, but can also be terminated at the slightest hint of poor performance. Over the last decade or so, these funds have taken a new approach to hiring. Will it hurt them or help them? Find out on the Coffee Run. This week's top story from Business Insider looks at the talent war among major hedge funds. Specifically, it notes that hedge funds have been forced to develop their internal talent pools by growing their internship and graduate schemes. Today, these hedge fund lifers are a huge portion of the talent landscape. At Citadel, for example, 2/3 of PMs in its fixed income and macro groups were developed in-house. At Point72, 60% of equity PMs came through its Launchpoint program. And there are multiple reasons for this. For one, Business Insider notes that trading desks in banks, where funds have historically hired a lot of talent, are much smaller now than they were in 2008. As that talent pool shrinks, the money these firms have to manage has ballooned. Millennium, for example, has over $86 billion to invest and is struggling to find enough people to invest it. The fund has tempted top portfolio managers with various perks, including working from tax havens like Dubai and working as a self-employed hedge fund manager whom Millennium simply invests in. Even that was not enough, as the fund is now starting out a graduate scheme for students to work alongside Millennium PMs and get a graduate job as an investment analyst. Analyst roles are of course often the first internal step to becoming a portfolio manager. Up to now, Millennium only had an internship program for its quant researchers, which can also lead to a job as a systematic portfolio manager, but is a bit more niche. Other funds have their own unique approach. Balyasny reportedly uses personality tests to match up juniors with a portfolio manager that shares their temperament. If they make PM, they are assigned an executive coach, often another PM, to show you the ins and outs. One Balyasny PM told Business Insider that this coaching role is akin to being their therapist. If a top graduate joins a hedge fund, they could work their way up to a portfolio manager gig at age 30. The problem is that existing portfolio managers don't seem to think very highly of the next generation. One PM at a major fund asked Business Insider, "Do you still know how to hunt if you were raised in captivity?" Is that being too harsh on these juniors? Perhaps there may even be a hint of jealousy from that PM who didn't have such a clear career path. Although to understand, we need to dig deep into exactly what it means to be a portfolio manager. You don't just manage money. You lead a team including investment analysts, quants, and sometimes tech or operations people too. They all work in service of your investment strategy and do their best to inform your decisions. Their livelihoods rely on you somewhat, creating a lot of pressure from the bottom, but that's nothing compared to the pressure from the top. Hedge funds expect results from their portfolio managers, and depending on where you work, a poor run of form can get you fired quickly. Millennium is widely reported to be a fund with strict rules around this. If you lose 5% of your capital, you're given less money to manage. If you lose 7.5%, you're given your marching orders. Other funds like Balyasny can be more sympathetic, but they have their limits. If you make a loss and you're asked to leave, there's a good chance the rest of your team will go with you. Because it's such a high-pressure job, a lot of people can't survive more than a few years at a hedge fund. Traders coming in from banks, for example, are used to being a small fish in a big pond, but the hedge fund pond is far smaller and full of sharks. Psychologically, you could find yourself prone to imposter syndrome, and you also can't rely on the buzz of the trading floor to guide your decisions. This is because teams are often disparate and operating in different markets. In fact, some hedge funds will actively pit their teams against each other if they're trading in the same market. Portfolio manager jobs also require a specific risk mindset in sync with the fund you join. Balyasny's founder, Dmitry Balyasny, said that risk is tough to coach, and that most people have an innate level of risk that can be influenced but not substantially changed. At Balyasny, he said the risk profile is enough confidence to take meaningful risk and tolerate volatility and drawdowns while not driving yourself crazy. That notion bodes itself well to the interns and graduates joining hedge funds. If you have the right risk profile, you should be able to do well. However, it can be really hard to develop that appetite when most of the risk is handled by the hedge fund itself. These institutions have huge risk teams, often including teams of quantitative risk specialists that analyse the performance of each team to help the fund decide how much money each PM gets to manage. On that subject, it's not clear exactly how much these lab-grown PMs manage compared to the naturally occurring ones. One senior equities PM told us in 2024 that young hedge fund employees typically manage up to $30 million. The PM said that he previously spoke to senior executives at a major hedge fund about how these kids, as he called them, knew very little about how portfolio management is really done. The people who are capable of running billion-dollar strategies are exceedingly rare. So rare, in fact, that sometimes the only way to hire one is to look for one that has made a huge loss. Multi-strategy hedge funds will hire billion-dollar portfolio managers on pay packages in the tens of millions, even when they've made a loss over the past year. Pay for other PMs isn't expected to be quite so lavish. In our salary and bonus report for last year, hedge fund staff at managing director equivalent level earned an average total compensation of $2.1 million, with almost the entirety paid via bonus. PMs usually earn money in line with the profits they make, and the less money you manage, the harder it is to turn a profit. Thank you for watching The Coffee Run. If you want to receive daily news updates on the biggest stories in banking and financial services, subscribe to Morning Coffee, our weekday newsletter. Every Friday, we pick the story that mattered most and dive deeper right here on The Coffee Run.